for my brothers, die for my brothers. If it's live through the time, step inside for my brothers. Fill the stage with my brother, wreck the game with my brothers. Stay the same, never switched up, never changed on my brothers. I would ride for my brothers, die for my brother. I would ride for my brothers, die. Where my niggas at? Death before the sign. I learned this shit from YAHANNA. So fuck them little problems you got with your baby mama. Any child, the trauma, or any eviction drama. Gird up thy loins, my nigga, and grab your armor. It's a war zone, a man for all seasons. Peep the wardrobe, never speak in subliminals. Nigga, there ain't no Morse code. All my niggas is diligent, all my niggas is militant, all my niggas is radical, all my niggas fanatical, well trained and tactical, universally practical, moving like we're mechanical, never taking sabbaticals. Every word of this factual, killing this shit so casual. Do this for my chief joy, Jerusalem, the capital. If I ever lose my nerve or start to doubt, I pray my tongue cleaves up to the roof of my mouth, that my hand lose its cunning, I can't win in the bout. I'm one west to the death of when them chariots out. I share pain with my brother, share gain with my brother. You need it, that got it, no it ain't a thing for my brother. I would ride for my brothers, die for my brothers. If it's live through the time, step inside for my brothers. Fill the stage with my brother, wreck the game with my brothers. Stay the same, never switched up, never changed on my brothers. I would ride for my brothers, die for my brother. I would ride for my brothers, die. You hear my niggas say?
Wing with my nigga, serve the king with my nigga, bust a thing with my nigga, bada bing for my nigga, lose your spleen for my nigga, get cream with my nigga, hidden colors, hidden figures, dark skin, scruffy beard, light skin, red beard, that's a nigga over here. Don't be tripping over here, cause we gripping over here, blow the smiffing over here, 33 up in the shot like I'm pippin' over here, yeah we pimpin' over here, bitches grinning over here, cause we clicking over here, or you dripping in the bed, shorty dripping in the bed, talking give and get head, and we love to bust lid when the blood all red and the body all dead, but my niggas all safe, we gon' get back to the place, that's exactly how we should, cause the temple is the hood, straight back, straight feet, that's exactly how we stood, give him the coat up off my back, pants, belt, and the strap for my brother.
With my brother, share gain with my brother. You need it, that got it, no it ain't a thing for my brother. I would ride for my brothers, die for my brothers. If it's live through the time, step inside for my brothers. Fill the stage with my brother, wreck the game with my brothers. Stay the same, never switched up, never changed on my brothers. I would ride for my brothers, die for my brother. I would ride for my brothers, die. You where my niggas at? True story.
The following is based on real events.
Yo. She didn't care for the Yeezys and the Jordans. Tired of the lies pastors told over organs. Her father just passed, so her heart had a dent. She would struggle with her mother to come up with the rent. Pastor only wanted dollars, something make sense. Till she heard a little story that went something like this. What's your nationality? Come and get a flyer. Do you know we got a dark-skinned Messiah? The devil is deceitful and the white man is a liar. Now she wanna study just to get her knowledge higher. A few months passed and she ain't one with her mother. Since she started learning, they would argue with each other. My mother doesn't understand, I'm not in the code. She needs to respect my decisions as an adult. This is a nice place where nobody will hurt you. Everything's so pretty and we're all wearing purple. It's been a few months, she found a man of the Lord, one who's steady in the word, always sharpening his sword. Stimulates her mind so she never gets bored. Talks to her like a princess and never like a whore. Got her thinking that there's more than only getting the draws. He's such a gentleman, always opening doors. Took her on a date, paid for everything in the stores, from dinner to Michael Kors. He's like, have it, it's yours. She can't believe it, it's all but a dream. Everything is beautiful, all peaches and cream. She says to herself, I'm happy I joined this group. It makes me feel good, I finally found the truth. These other groups always talking about polygyny, but I found a real man who says he's only into me. What a nice place where nobody will hurt you. Everything's so pretty and we're all wearing purple. Then one night on their way home, she seen something she didn't like when she went through his phone. Is this why you said that it's hard to take care of me? You wasn't gonna say you got a whole family? I don't understand how you think it's fair to me. I've been sharing you, but you ain't been sharing me. Why won't you answer me? But he's thinking carefully. He tried to calm her down, don't get hype. Couldn't diffuse the situation and they started to fight. He made a wrong.
Shalom, 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 Israel. Yahweh Shem Shabbat to all the brothers. Yahweh Shema Bashim Shai, all the sisters. We are the I.S.U.P.K, started at 1 West 125th Street, Harlem, New York. And I am Officer of 50 Sharia 1 under Commanding General YAHANNA. Tonight is Wednesday's night law class. I got an article we're going to read about a bit of the racism and oppression that blacks in Canada have been facing over the years. And this law class is about the things that we need to be doing in order to change the condition of blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians. So this article, we're going to start with this article. I'm going to share my screen. This article is about some of the racism that blacks have been going through in Canada and some of the statistics and research that they've done on our people over here in Canada. All right, so after we read through this article, I'm going to close out with going through a couple scriptures, and that'll be the law class for tonight. All right, so this article is titled "The Pervasive Reality of Anti-Black Racism in Canada." Make sure, let me zoom in a bit so everybody can see my screen. Okay, that should be Tawab. So in this law class, when we start getting into some of these scriptures, we're going to go over what these laws offer blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians, right? What these laws are really about and some of the ways that we can ensure that we're keeping them. All right, so this article, let's start with that. Let's see if it's shared. Looks good. So yeah, this article is titled "The Pervasive Reality of Anti-Black Racism in Canada." And it reads, "The Current State and What to Do About It." This was written a couple months ago, about 4 months ago. And it reads, while Canadians often believe that our country is a model when it comes to inclusion, the hard truth is we have a long way to go toward achieving equity for the Black population in Canada. A new review and compilation of the available data by BCG and Civic Action demonstrate the depth and pervasiveness of anti-Black racism in Canada and how systemic racism against Black individuals appears across their full life cycle in areas like education, employment, healthcare, and policing. With all that's happening in the world, from the killing of George Floyd to how COVID-19 has disproportionately impacted those from racialized communities, we needed to act. This report lays bare the depth of anti-Black racism in Canada. We are calling on Canadian companies, governments, and individuals to deepen their commitment and accountability to addressing anti-Black racism. The authors compiled data and consulted with a subset of leaders and experts from Black communities in Canada. We took a cross-Canada lens using national data where available, with a focus on the Greater Toronto region where more specific data was tracked and available. We then examined proven actions and promising practices from around the world to identify interventions that could be considered for adoption here at home. Our goal is to underscope the systemic oppression that Black people in Canada face, with the aim to enable a better understanding to illustrate the importance of action and to sustain motivation and momentum for change. So according to them, basically they did an in-depth study on different areas or in all areas in society that has an effect on Black people in Canada. And according to them, they tried to be as accurate as possible, using as much resources that were available to them to try to come up with as accurate statistics and information as possible, right? So this data indicates that anti-Black racism exists in Canada and is worse than many Canadians think, which shouldn't be which shouldn't be a surprise to any Blacks living here in Canada. And what I mean by that is, I would just say anybody living here or who has grown up here has lots of stories about things that they have faced living here, or for all their time in Canada. Excuse me. Right, so this shouldn't be a surprise to some Blacks. And in this article, they even go on to say that even though a lot of Blacks that are living in Canada will say that they don't experience racism or are pretty happy with the way Canadians or the Canadian government treats them overall, I think it's something like 86% of them all have stories about racism that they've dealt with here in Canada. So it's almost as if they don't want to admit this place is racist, but they have stories of a lot of things that they've experienced while living here. All right, so this article goes on to read the research. Excuse me. The research we compiled shows the realities of the Black experience in Canada, which when put together are eye-opening. Black students are 4 times more likely to be expelled from a Toronto high school than white students. Black workers are twice as likely excuse me. Slack here, just a sec. Slacking. So these are some of the statistics or some of the information that they've gathered. It says Black students are 4 times more likely to be expelled from a Toronto high school than white students. Black workers are twice as likely as Asian workers and 4 times as likely as white workers to report experiencing racial discrimination in major decisions at workplaces in Canada. Black university graduates earn only 80 cents for every dollar earned by white university graduates, despite having the same credentials. Black women are 3 times less likely to have a family doctor than non-racialized women in Ontario. Black residents are 20 times more likely than a white resident to be shot dead by police in Toronto. Those are some interesting statistics. At the same time, a 2019 survey indicates nearly half of Canadians believe discrimination against Black people is no longer a problem, even as 83% of Black people in Canada say that they are treated unfairly at least some of the time. The events of 2020, including the death of George Floyd, have drawn global attention to the reality of systemic anti-Black racism. Now more than ever, there is a need to double down on efforts to eliminate anti-Black racism in Canada. The data and insights in this report should serve to catalyze continued action by individuals, corporations, and governments in Canada. The state of anti-Black racism in Canada. Black communities in Canada have doubled in size over the past 25 years to more than 1.2 million people, 3.5% of the national population. Even though more than 1 out of every 30 Canadians is Black, a number that jumps to 1 in 11 people in Toronto, the experiences and diversity of Black communities in Canada are often aggregated into the category of visible minority and overlooked. To help paint the picture, we have compiled a data set that highlights some of the specifics of Canadian Black communities' experiences. We focus on a set of specific life cycle areas where Black Canadians experience racism, guided by 4 of the pillars of the City of Toronto's action plan to confront anti-Black racism, in an area where at least some existing data had been published. Our goal in synthesizing this data is to provide Canadians with a mirror reflecting the disparate outcomes in our country in order to drive education and inspire sustained action. So these are a couple more statistics. And these were some of the initiatives that the Canadian government were pushing to help in some of these areas where people are facing discrimination. So some of these categories are children and youth development. Another category is job opportunities and income supports, health and community services, and policing and the justice system. So these were some of the areas that they wanted to address. So children and youth development, while education is a bedrock foundation for human development, Black students in Ontario have appreciably worse education outcomes. In Toronto, the dropout rate for Black students is 23%, compared to 12% for white students. That's damn near double. Facing systemic biases day to day, Black students also achieve lower EQAO test scores in mathematics, reading, and writing. Why is this the case, you might ask? We have identified data showing the multiple ways in which systemic racism in Canada drives worse educational performance for Black students. And these are some of the things, these are some of the stats that they show. Black students face assessment bias from teachers. There's 2 times fewer excellent ratings by teachers despite the same standardized test scores. So I guess teachers are giving students lower ratings. Black students, 2 times fewer lower ratings, even though they're having the exact same test scores. Black students are disproportionately suspended. 42% are suspended at least once versus 18% of white students in Toronto high schools. That means 4 in 10 kids, a little over 4 in 10 kids. That's damn near almost half damn near almost half of all black kids are going to be suspended at least once while they're at high school. That's pretty high statistics. While for whites, it's only at 18%. Black students are disproportionately expelled. 48% of expulsions to Toronto high schools, yet only 12% of students. So 48 of all expulsions going on in Toronto high schools are all black kids, black students. Again, that's basic. That's damn near half of all expulsions. And blacks only make up 12% of the population, or 12% of the students that are at high school. A staff diversity gap results in a lack of role models at school. Half as many black teachers in Canada versus the black population, 1.8% versus 3.5% of the population. So we have a lot less black teachers representing us in the schools. Fewer black students feel a sense of trust and belonging in school. You have a 9 pp difference, not sure what pp is, in black students' feeling of belonging versus white students. And black students enter school at a disadvantage due to socioeconomic conditions, 2 times the rate of students coming from a low-income household. One challenge for black students is the lack of black teachers in the classroom. So this is kind of summing it up. Recent studies show that having a black teacher can result in a 13% increase in enrollment in post-secondary schooling and decrease the probability of dropping out by 29%. That's a lot. While black people make up 3.5% of Canada's population, only 1.8% of teachers are black. This lack of black representation makes a difference in multiple ways. For one, black teachers are less likely to use language in the classroom that negatively labels black students. Teachers might use language to describe black children that they would not for white children, such as threatening. According to one black leader we consulted, from an early age, kids are being told who they are from the people that they spend the most amount of time with, their teachers. Who teachers think you are and what you can be is really important. Another impact of implicit bias from teachers is seen in assessment of student capabilities. For example, only 3% of those labeled gifted in Toronto schools are black, despite black students making up 12% of the population. A study found that teachers in Ontario were twice as likely to rate a white student as excellent than a black student on their report card, even when those students had the same standardized EQAO scores. Meanwhile, black students are 2.5 times more likely than white students to be streamed into non-academic applied programs in Toronto, in turn affecting everything from graduation rates to post-secondary prospects. And what that looks like if you're in the US, in these Canadian high schools, they have they have, I think, what is called as applied courses, and what's the name of that other one? I think it's called applied and academic. So basically, these kids come into high school starting in grade 9, and almost in grade 9 they decide whether they want to work towards going to college or university, right? In the States, that might be like a community college versus an Ivy League college, right? College for us up here is like a community college in the States, right? So at a young age, if they go into applied programs, they're basically going towards community college. But if they go into an academic program starting from grade 9, then they will work towards going to university. right? And so this is saying that Black students are 2.5 times more likely than white students to be streamed into non-academic applied programs in Toronto, meaning that's more than double of the Black students are being told, basically, go to community college, right? So job opportunities and income supports. Racism in the workforce creates barriers to employment and impairs career progression for Black people. One stark statistic, as of October 2020, the unemployment rate for Black Canadians was 5 points higher than the rate for Canadians who are not a visible minority. And while the impact of COVID-19 has driven up the unemployment rate for all Canadians compared to October 2019, the Black unemployment rate was 3.8 points higher, while the rate for non-visible minorities was up just 2.6 points. This is in part because Black workers are disproportionately represented in service industries, which are particularly affected by COVID-19. With the second wave and subsequent lockdowns now upon us, the Black unemployment rate may be primed to rise further. What drives these higher unemployment figures, Black people in Canada face many systemic challenges and barriers in the hiring process. Even when experience is comparable to that of non-Black candidates, systemic biases make it more difficult for Black candidates to land positions for which they are qualified. What time is it? I'm going to keep reading a bit more. One particularly sobering study showed the extent of this bias. The study, conducted in Toronto, used the same resume and cover letter with only 2 differences: whether the applicant had a white-sounding or Black-sounding name, and whether the applicant referred to having a criminal record in the cover letter. The results show that among those with no criminal record, the white resume received 3 times the number of callbacks as the Black resume. When both candidates indicated a criminal record, the difference in callbacks jumped to 12 times. Damn. And perhaps most shockingly, the white applicants with a criminal record still got nearly twice as many calls back as the Black applicants with no record. That's crazy. So this is saying that that's crazy. So this is saying that if you're a Black person, or what they consider to have a Black resume, and you have a criminal record, and you put that in your resume, you are still, or Salakia, a white person or a white resume is still being called back twice as many times, even though that white applicant's resume has a criminal record. They're called back nearly twice as many times as Black applicants with no record. That's crazy. That's crazy. I'm going to keep going. And this is why this law class is so important. We're going to get into that. Who's that? Hey, Shalom, Officer Zabadia. Yahba Shem Yashai Barakatah.
Shalom, Aki. How about Shem Yashai Barakatah?
Yes, thank you for tuning in. Just checking the chat. Shalom, Kalpa, Yasha'Allah, Yashamar Alatha, Bashem Yashai, sis. Thank you for tuning in. Just going over some data or statistics in Canada that Black people face here, right? This is some of the systemic racism that we deal with on a day-to-day basis. So I'm going to keep reading a little more before we get into these scriptures.
God.
So it says, when Black people do succeed in finding a job, systemic racism in the workplace can result in hitting up against a glass ceiling In addition to facing microaggressions and having to code switch, which is defined as a person changing the way they express themselves when they are around non-racialized people in the workforce, Black employees have low rates of sponsorship and find hidden biases in promotion processes. This is reflected in the data that shows Black leaders hold less than 1% of executive roles and board seats at major Canadian companies. So here's some of the stats. It says Black employees forced to code switch to integrate into a non-Black workforce. 53% of Black graduates feel the need to adjust their behavior at work. All right, so that's damn near, again, half of Black people going into the workforce believe they are not allowed to be themselves. All right, Black employees experience racism and microaggressions on the job, 4 times the reported microaggressions for Black employees versus white. Promotion processes are often laden with hidden biases that harm Black employees. It says 50% of Black workers report discrimination to promotion processes. White professionals do not see or acknowledge the obstacles Black professionals face. 16% of white workers say it is harder for Black workers to advance versus 65% of Black workers. So basically, white people don't see an issue that Black people face on the job. Low rates of sponsorship, despite being particularly beneficial to Black workers. Blacks are 5 times more likely to say sponsorship is effective than white workers. Black employees face additional home life stressors, 2 times the rate of Black Canadians living in a lone parent family. It's like 2 times the rate of Black Canadians living in an alone parent family. So it's just saying Black employees face additional stressors on the job, 2 times more than white people. One specific challenge we heard referenced continually through our interviews was that Black employees experience microaggressions on the job. Microaggressions are brief, everyday exchanges that send denigrating messages, anything from stereotyping comments to racially insensitive language. These microaggressions often demean Black workers, instill distrust, and prevent a sense of belonging. This time we got. I'm going to jump down a bit. I want to make sure I have time to get into. I want to try to cover all these scriptures that I got. So let's check out one more. I'm going to check out another. This is another initiative that they see Blacks where they see the need to help Blacks in the Canadian society. So this one is about compared to non-racialized Ontarians, Black Ontarians are more likely to be stopped, questioned, and searched by police. Blacks are 3 to 4 times more likely to be street checked or profiled, be arrested and charged when stopped. Blacks are arrested 4 times more than expected for drug-related crimes in Ontario. To be held after arrest or in pretrial detention, we're 2 times more likely to be held overnight for drug possession versus white suspects. We're victims of police shootings and force. Blacks in Canada are 20 times more likely to be shot dead by police in Toronto than white residents. That's insanity. How much more times Blacks are being shot by police in Toronto. Have a community homicide go unsolved. blacks are almost half as likely to have a homicide cleared by police in Toronto. And I know I brought that out before in some brotherhood classes about all our indigenous sisters from the reserves. A lot of those sisters have gone missing. Not just our indigenous sisters, but our black sisters too, our black and Hispanic sisters too. And these sisters that are going missing, a lot of them have cases that are unsolved, right? And so that's a pretty common thing going on in our community. So I'm gonna end there. That should just, I'll post the link to this article if you want to go through it more for yourself. But these are just some of the things that blacks are facing in Canada, right? So I'm going to end with that. Salaki, Officer Zabadi, are you there?
Khan, I'm here.
Khan, Most High in Christ. So we're going to jump into some scripture.
Khan.
Again, that article is just, don't think for a second racism isn't going on in Canada.
Right.
Blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians, we're all facing it. We're all in this curses together, right? And so what this law class is about today is us getting our freedom out of here, us getting freedom out of oppression, right? And how we obtain that as a people. So Salaki, Officer, can you grab Deuteronomy chapter 4 and verse 5, Baba Kasha?
Khan. Deuteronomy 4 verse 5. Behold, I have taught you statutes and judgments, even as the Lord my God commanded me.
Khan. Moses taught us statutes and judgments, meaning rules and punishments,
Right.
so that we would be an example to other nations on how to live, on what righteousness looks like. Yeah? Keep reading.
Khan. That ye should do so in the land whither ye go to possess it.
Khan, and the Lord gave us these rules to govern us in the land where we would be going to live. And these rules would be our wisdom in the sight of the nations. Keep reading.
Verse 6. Keep therefore and do them, for this is your wisdom and your understanding in the sight of the nations.
Khan. In 2021, all wisdom has been lost in the Black, Native, and Native Indian community, right? Like, this is why we're number one in the prison systems. Like, this is why we're number one in dying of all major diseases, dying of gun violence. Like, the structure of our family has been turned down, right? Our men are being demasculated.
Right.
Even the homosexuals and strung out on drugs. Like, this is why we're going through these things, right? Keep reading.
Which shall hear all these statutes and say, surely this nation, Salakia, surely this great nation is a wise and understanding people.
Khan. And the cause of all our suffering today is because we don't have these laws, statutes, and commandments, right? Keep reading.
Verse 7. For what nation is there so great who has God so nigh unto them, as the Lord our God is in all things that we call upon for him? Salakia, for him for.
God. The Most High said that these other nations are supposed to see us obeying these laws, striving and achieving greatness. And when they look at us, they would say, surely this is a wise and understanding people, right? They would look at us and see how we deal with each other as brothers and sisters. You understand? Like today, nobody looks at us as we're some great nation, right? They ridicule us, they mock us, and they come together to keep us destroyed because we are void of understanding. We're void of wisdom and knowledge,
Right.
right? Let's jump to John chapter 8 and verse 32.
Con.
Because this is how the other nations should be viewing us, right? We shouldn't be on the bottom. We shouldn't be in the ghettos, the barrios, the reservations. We should be a nation that's in rulership, right? In John 8 and 32, Baba Shah.
Con.
Whenever you get it.
Okay, one moment. John 8 and 32. And ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free.
Khan. And the truth is knowing and doing what the Most High wants you to do. And if you can find and do it, you will have freedom. Right? Like the Webster's definition of freedom. Let me pull that up. Spark here. See what that says. So this is the Webster's definition of freedom. And it says the quality or state of being free, such as the absence of necessity, coercion, or constraint in choice or action, right? The quality or state of being free. You understand? Like to be free is to have no external forces that will coerce you to behave in a certain way. Understand? You don't have to act out of need or act because someone is holding you back from something. And freedom is a little different from free will, free choice, in the sense that like this freedom that we're reading about, this is freedom from oppression, right? This is freedom out of the madness that's going on in this country. You understand? Read that again, Baba Kishar.
And ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free.
God, that truth shall make you free. Like Blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians, we're very far from being free. Understand? Like we're constantly bombarded with all the propaganda from the media. Like there are laws in place that oppress us, like that Indian Act, that stop us from being able to rise as a people and be independent. Understand? Like you could say Canada's arguably the most racist country in the world. Understand? Like we still got natives on reserves that, or I shouldn't say most racist, I should say the most segregated country in the world, right? Like everybody thinks that we should integrate and unify, and that's the be all end all of racism. Yet they don't practice what they're teaching. They don't practice their own beliefs on integration. Understand? Canada is one of the most segregated countries in the world, right? And these laws are here to oppress us. And we got to understand as a people, the only tool that we have to be able to combat our oppressor is the truth, right? When you are able to understand who you are as a people, when you're able to understand that you descend from one of the 12 tribes of the nation of Israel, you understand? Like if you could just do that, if you could just start there, you would begin to realize you actually belong to something. You belong to a nation of people. You're actually a people that should have a land and a country, and that there's other nations that have waged war on you. You understand? Like you would begin to understand that you actually have enemies. You have people that are what's Proverbs 83 or 89, 82 say? These nations are confederate against us. You understand? And they have come together to work together to oppress us
Right.
because they understand exactly who we are. You understand? These other nations hate us because of who we belong to, because
Right.
of the position that we're supposed to hold here on earth, right? And so being a part of the nation of Israel, like it's our job to keep these laws, statutes, and commandments and obey the Most High. If we would be able to do this, we would learn how to be good brothers and sisters to our nation, to those being enslaved and oppressed. You understand? Like we have to free our minds from the lies of our enemies, because the battle that we're fighting, it's not a physical battle, right? But we're battling against ourselves. It's a war against our flesh, right? Let's jump to Romans chapter 12 and verse 1. Romans chapter 12 and verse 1.
Okay. Romans 12, verse 1. I beseech you, therefore, brethren, by the mercies of God, that ye present your bodies a living sacrifice, holy, acceptable unto God, which is your reasonable service.
Okay. And so Paul is beseeching his brethren, meaning he's pleading with his brethren. He's begging them, earnestly trying to convince them. He's trying to reason with them, saying, present your body a living sacrifice, meaning give up what it is you want, right? Don't do what your flesh desires. Don't do what your mind wants to do. Don't do what your body tells you, but instead do what the Lord wants you to do. Understand? And the Most High wants you to be obedient. He wants you to eat the things that he tells you to eat. He wants you to treat your brothers the way he says to treat them. He tells you to have sex with the women he tells you to have sex with. You understand? Like these laws, statutes, and commandments govern our entire life. And this is what the Most High wants of us. You understand? And when Paul's beseeching his brethren to be holy, which is acceptable unto the Most High, that's to be different.
Right.
Right? Holy is to be different, to be separate, to be set apart. We are not supposed to be like everyone else. Understand? Like you come into this truth, you gotta be prepared for your family to hate you.
Right.
Like, quick story. Officer Zabadia, maybe you've had similar things like this because we're both Benjamite, but I was surprised at how many people hated me because I wouldn't eat pork anymore. Like it was a real problem for some people to face the fact that I wasn't gonna eat jerk pork with them anymore. Like it was the most disrespectful thing in the world for me not to eat their jerk pork, right? And I was a little surprised that not eating something would cause so much tension or separation between brothers and sisters. You understand?
Slovakia.
God,
For me, it was not eating shrimp and not loving your oppressors anymore.
God,
Like once you stop eating that shrimp, and once you can't love the other nation, everyone's looking at you like, why can't you love the other nation? Why don't you eat the shrimp? I tell them the shrimp is dirty. You're not supposed to eat that. It's the thing that eats the dead whale bodies, and they're looking at me like what the heck are you talking about? No, I can't get with that with Ling Ling right now because like she's not of my nation, and they're like, what are you talking about?
God, 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 absolutely, sir. And you know what I mean. And these are the things that we face when we become holy. We separate ourselves from everybody
Right,
else. All right. And so people are gonna hate you. People are gonna disagree with you. They're gonna say you're in a cult, and that's because you are establishing yourself as being holy. All right. And
right,
this is a reasonable service to the Most High, meaning, um, what's that? I think 1 John 3 and verse 5 says these commandments aren't grievous, right?
right,
Meaning it keeping the law, statutes, and commandments, it's not a hard thing. So when Paul is saying this is a reasonable service, it's not too much to ask you to do. It's not a lot to ask brothers and sisters to obey their father, to give up something like smoking weed or to give up eating crab, to give up Christmas. It's a small thing for the Lord to ask you to do these things. And not only are these things small and reasonable for him to ask you, but all of these things benefit your life,
right,
right? Like the most High wants us to live and not and be good to one another. You understand? The Most High wants good things for us, right? So these laws, statutes, and commandments, it's a reasonable thing for the Most High to ask from us, right? Keep reading. Verse 2, Baba Kasha.
Slovakia. One moment. Romans 12:2. And be not conformed to this world, but be ye transformed by the root. Slovakia. By the Slovakia. This is the old English.
By the renewing.
Renewing Khan Thuata. This is the old English. It doesn't even say Slovakia. I'm gonna catch it again from the top. And be not conformed to this world, but be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind, that ye may prove what is that good. Salakia. That ye may prove what is that good, that acceptable and perfect will of God.
And this is a beautiful scripture because for Blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians, this is what it means to be free.
Right.
Understand? Like Yahawashai in the Hebrew, who the world calls Christ, that word means to deliver, right? Christ came to free us. to free us from a kingdom that promotes us to give in to every lust of the flesh known to man. Right? We got to free our minds from these worldly ways of thinking. Understand? This is what Christ wanted for us. And Christ wanted us to be transformed by the renewing of our minds. And we do that by first accepting that you need to be taught. Right? If you could humble yourself down and understand that you needed to renew your mind, you would understand that the only way you get your mind renewed is by somebody teaching you, right? To be as a child is Christ many times referred to, right? And this is why Christ said, the only way to the Father is through me. Like, we must accept that we need to learn that we don't know anything about life. Understand? Like, this is what it is to be humble, to follow the teachings of Christ, follow the blueprint he laid down to overcome our flesh, and follow in his footsteps, right? And if we could do that, then we would prove the good and acceptable will of God, which is to obey him. And just because we follow him, it doesn't mean that we're not going to suffer, but at least if we do it, then that suffering will be worth something, right? Let's jump to Ecclesiastes chapter 12 and verse 13. Because all these stories and all these records of the children of Israel, like the captivity that we're in today, the oppression that we're facing today, it's not the first time that this has happened to the nation of Israel, right? All right, we're going to read Ecclesiastes chapter 12, verses 13 to 14.
I'm getting it right now.
And and the book of Ecclesiastes is written by King Solomon. And in King Solomon's infinite wisdom, he took time out of his life to explore all the things in life that men can glory and enjoy in. And all Solomon's wisdom and wealth, he explored every aspect of humanity. Understand? Like, Solomon built the temple of the Most High. And at the end of everything he did, he turned and said, all of this was vanity. All of this was vanity and vexation of spirit. Right? Like, King Solomon was famous for having all the women in the world. Right? And he said all of this was for nothing. Understand? And Ecclesiastes chapter 12 and verse 13, it tells you King Solomon's conclusion to all of these things in life. Right?
I got it whenever you're ready.
Read that verse when you got it.
Ecclesiastes 12:13. Let us hear the conclusion of the whole matter. Fear God and keep his commandments, for this is the whole duty of man. Salakia, can you hear me? Oh,
and that's it, right? It's just plain and simple.
Now.
Fear the Most High, fear the Father, and obey him.
Right.
Right? Keep reading.
Verse 14.
Come on,
For,
sir.
for God shall bring every work into judgment with every secret thing, whether it be good or whether it be evil.
Slaki.
Salakia Ak, if you can hear me, we getting that lag again. You blazing YouTube up, they trying to stop us. Salakia, the oppressor is the devil the Bible speaks of.
And this is why we gotta fear the Most High and obey Him, because the Most High is gonna judge everything that we do. Huh.
So okay, I'm gonna read that one more time, right? So the Ecclesiastes 12 and 14. For God shall bring every work into judgment, right? Everything you do, Blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans, the Most High He's watching you. The angels are coming down. They're looking at what you do. They're seeing every nasty sin you do, and they're going back up and reporting it. It's getting written down. You're gonna be brought to judgment, right? Your judgment can come as you're living right now, or it could come when you pass, right? And you go up to that throne room and you're in the judge, you're being judged, right? Like, and that's what Salakia, you're back. Salakia, can you hear me?
Con, I can hear you good.
Okay, hopefully we're not lagging too quick, too much, Salakia. Right? And
Con,
so the
Salaki.
Most High,
So,
He's watching all of the things that we do. Salakia, I was just breaking down the first part of verse 14 right up until judgment.
Con.
Now I
And
hand the class back over to Officer Shar. You want?
no, go out the other one.
No
And
sweat
so
off.
just as Officer Zabadi was saying, right? Like this is the exact reason that we got to keep these laws, statutes, and commandments, because at the end of our lives, and not even just at the end of our lives, but while we're living, the Most High is going to bring all of our works into judgment.
Right.
You understand? Like the scriptures say, the place of judgment is under the sun. It's here on earth. We don't go up into a cloud or into a pit beneath the earth where there's some demons and pitchforks running around. Like the place of judgment is here on earth. And every
Right.
good work that we do, we will be rewarded for. Every evil work that we do, we will be rewarded for. You understand? And this is how we become free. All right, let's grab 1 Samuel 15 and verse 22.
Come. And Salakia, if I may, right? Blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans, I know you're tired of the racism. Like Canada is terrible for racism, right? Because they act like the racism doesn't exist, right? And that's the worst racism, where your oppressor smiles in your face and he's stabbing you in the back. In America, from the outside looking in, it looks like they have their racism right there. They know who the devil is, right? Blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans, it's like y'all don't know who the devil is, even though you do. And it's time for you to wake up. You got to come back home to your culture. Salakia.
Cons, Salaki, if I could add to that, just a quick story. I remember I was at a place down south, and a couple of us went out at night,
Right.
and there was a sign. There was a sign in the window that said "No colors allowed."
Oh,
And
wow.
that threw me off. as a young man because um, I grew up I grew up as a young kid in Canada, and I moved to the States. And when I moved to the States, um, seeing that seeing that sign in the window, I didn't even think that was allowed. You know what I mean? I didn't think you could legally do something like that. But um, to jump to the point of it, when I saw that sign there, the one of my boys that were with me were like, "No, we can't go here, right? We're not welcome here." And I remember thinking, "Well, thank you for letting me know."
Right. Right.
And I didn't feel any ways about it. You know what I mean? I didn't care that it wasn't a place we could go. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't hurt me not to go there and get some drinks and get some food. I'll go to the next place, right? And
Right.
so I was actually appreciative for that sign. And so fast forwarding, I moved back to Canada, and I was out in the country somewhere. I went to a bar, and when I got in line, everybody was staring at me. And the one person I was with was like, "Yeah, they're not used to seeing black people around here." And I'm like, "Okay, that's interesting." We wait in line, get to the front. And when I get to the bouncer says, "I don't think it's a good idea that you be here." And at that point, I remember thinking, like, you could have saved me waiting in line for 30 minutes to get into a place that that I wasn't welcome
Right.
anyway. You know what I mean? Like, you didn't have to pull me to the side all secretively, like my feelings are gonna be hurt. You know what I mean? Because that just saves me drama, right?
Right.
Rather than having people stare at me all weird, whispering weird comments to each other, staring at me.
Right.
I'm good to move on. And so I just say that to say Canada being passive aggressive and silent, don't think that there's any less racism here than there is in the States. All right.
Damn right.
Just, some people are a little more open about it, and that's all it is.
That
Um,
Salakia, if I may,
count on concert.
that like you broke that down perfectly, right? Because you're seeing the sign and you're not feeling no ways about it. It's just like, all right, so I'm just not gonna be there, right? Our oppressors, they love when our so-called shepherds force us into burning houses,
Count.
right? Like they love that. Like only a lust-filled man would want to see would want to love his oppressor, right? Why would you want to eat in a restaurant where you're not welcomed, right? You're gonna let someone who hates you cook your food. That's just stupid. Like I don't understand, right? And like black people in general, we hold some of like the most some people who've led us terribly wrong just into high regard. Like we hold Martin Luther King in the highest regard, like black people in
Count.
the world, when all he did was kill black business. Because of Martin Luther King, now we got to say support black business, right? His lust for the oppressor's daughter is why we're in such a terrible state right now. Salakia, we lagging again.
Count. Count on count. Yeah, that's exactly it.
Right. So while we wait for Officer Shaiwan to get back, right? He was touching on some heavy things that every Black, Hispanic, and Native American person goes through on the job force, right? We go into these jobs trying to get the job, and we got to switch up the whole style. There was actually a movie that they came out with, right? It has that weird character from that show Atlanta, basically where they gotta go get a job. They have a job and they have to. It's like a sales job, and the girl's like, "Yo, how you getting these sales?" And the dude, he was like Lansfield. He's asking how you getting the sales on the job because they gotta talk over the phone. He's talking black over the phone, right? Then you have Danny Glover. Danny Glover tells him, "Yo, you gotta talk with your white voice." And that's a thing where to get these jobs you got to talk with your white voice, and it's one of those things where you just know like damn, I'm gonna have to like actually turn off a part of myself, right? I'm gonna have to laugh at jokes that aren't funny. The Esau, he's gonna come with like 1,000 gay jokes, and you're like Jake's in the world, they're gonna be laughing. Right, myself, I keep my UPK smile on. They know not to come to me with those gay jokes. Salakia.
Khan. Khan and Salakia, sir. That's
Khan.
that's one of the statistics I read too in that article, is that it's reported that damn near 53% of Black people living in Canada don't believe that they can be themselves on the job,
Facts.
right? Like that's a very high statistic, right? And that should let you know that you're not welcome here. You understand? You can't wear or dress the way you want to dress, have your hair the way you want to have your hair, and that to shed light on how much these people hate you. You understand? That shouldn't be. It's unfortunately for a lot of us, some of us internalize it like there's something wrong with us. You know what I mean? And we
Right.
take a hit to our self-esteem, but if you got your eyes open, that should let you know that they just hate you. That's all it is.
Right.
There's nothing wrong with who you are. They got a problem with you. They don't like you because of the way the Most High created you and the covenant that He gave and made with you as a people. But that has nothing to do with your worth as a person here on earth, right? Let's grab 1 Samuel chapter 15 and verse 22.
Khan. First Samuel 15 and 22. And Samuel said, "Has the Lord as great delight in the burnt offerings and sacrifices as in obeying the voice of the Lord? Behold, to obey is better than sacrifice, and to hearken than the fat of rams."
Salakia, can you hear me, sir?
Khan, I can hear you. We're lagging again, so I read it, but I'm not sure if you heard me. All right, so Khan, I'm gonna break down what I just read. I'm gonna read it one more time. This is First Samuel 15 and 22. And Samuel said, "Has the Lord as Salakia, hath the Lord as great delight in burnt offerings and sacrifices?" Right? What he's saying is the Lord don't have delight in sacrifices. Like, you do it so you can feel the pain of it, so you can change. Like, your sacrifice, he don't even want to smell them. You got to remember, at one time he said he's not going to smell our burnt offerings. Right? The Lord don't have, he's not happy about us paying the fine. Right? Or are we? As in obeying the voice of the Lord, right? So he wants you to obey him. That's why our oppressors are on top of our necks for 8 minutes and goddamn know how many seconds, right? Almost 9 minutes the oppressor is on our neck, snuffing the life out of us, right? That's why we're begging for jobs, and we gotta with sisters. Like, how many weaves do the sisters have to wear? They damn near won't get a job if they don't have the weaving. Right, especially in a city like Toronto, when you have every nation trying to who will work for less than a sister and get the job, and the nations, they get to be themselves, right? The nations get to be themselves. They don't have to hide who they are, right? Behold, to obey, right? Listening. Behold, to listen, to do what the Lord wants you to do. That's what obey means. The Lord tells you you got to wear fringes. That means do it. He says you got to celebrate Passover and you got to observe the Day of Atonement. You do it. That's what obey means. He says you can't sleep with the other nations. That's what you do, right? No pork, no shrimp, right? You have to do that. Right? To obey is better than sacrifice, and to hearken than the fat of rams. Right? The Lord wants you to listen. Like, the fat of those rams is like, he's tired of that. He's tired of that. That's why we're going through it right now. That's why we're still going through it. Right? We're not going to get out of this oppression without obeying the Most High. Like, it's been 400 long years of this same oppression, right? In Montreal, you can't even Salakia, be chilling without the police trying to come into your house, right? The police just want to go into your house, especially if you're Black, Hispanic, and Native American, right? Our brothers in Montreal, our Native brothers, our Gadite brothers, they're sleeping under bridges and on sidewalks, right? Because they won't hearken. And there's billions of dollars in this country. Every Native American could be set up for life. The oppressor does not want that, right? So you gotta hearken. You gotta listen to the voice of the Lord thy God. He don't care about your burnt sacrifices. Salakia, Officer Shah, you're back?
Con, sir. Salakia, it should be better.
Khan. The oppressor, man, he's a devil. Your classes, they be burning up. Waking up the zombies, man. They don't want that. It's still doing it
Salakia,
on.
let's try to get through this. The water, sir, for breaking that down.
No sweat.
Let's jump to Let's jump to Ephesians 6 and verse 12, Baba Kasha. We'll
I
skip
didn't hit that
over
Ezekiel if you still wanted that.
some things. Um, that's fine. I'm gonna skip a couple verses.
Con,
Well, Ephesians 6 and verse 12, Baba Kasha.
con. Ephesians 6, verse 12. For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against rulers of the darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places. Slakia, I ain't hearing you.
Brothers and sisters, blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians, we got to understand that we're in a war. Our life is about war, and we got to prepare ourselves. You understand? Our war is against our flesh and our mind. We got to fight against that thing that tells us to go left when we're supposed to go right. You understand? Let's drop that and grab 2 Timothy chapter 2 and verse 3. Salakia, bear with us. Salakia, I'm having some technical difficulties. Salakia, can you hear me? Testing, testing. Hit a 1 in the chat if you can hear me. Testing, testing. Testing, testing. Hit a 1 in the chat if you can hear me. All right, Shalakia, bear with us, bear with me. I'm gonna try to get through these scriptures, and then we'll close out the class. So we're in Shalakia. We just read Ephesians chapter 6 and verse 12, and so brothers and sisters, Blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians, we gotta understand that this war that we're in is against our minds, is against our flesh, right? This freedom that we're gonna gain is from warring against the things that we desire, right? So let's jump to 2 Timothy. We're going to go to 2 Timothy chapter 2 and verse 3. Second Timothy chapter 2 and verse 3 says, "Thou therefore endure hardness as a good soldier of Yahweh." Right? In this battle, in this life, it's going to be hard. There's nothing promised that is going to be an easy road for us. You don't find that in the scriptures, right? And Christ is our king, and he had to fight until death. You understand? As disciples of Christ or followers of Christ, we should take from his example and endure hardness, right? Endure when the road gets tough, like a good soldier, right? And being a soldier, we got to learn to take order. We got to learn to stop thinking for ourselves and just do what we're told. Understand? Don't think too much and try to figure everything out. And this will make this walk a lot easier for us. Doing what you're told to do will stop you from doing what you tell yourself to do. You understand? Let's go to 1 Corinthians chapter 4 and verse 15. First Corinthians 4 and verse 15 says, "For though you have 10,000 instructors in Christ,
So, can you hear me?
have ye not many fathers? For in Christ I have begotten you through the gospel." Meaning, come on, sir. Can you hear me okay?
Shalaki, I can hear you okay, but it's just a long delay. I said that like at least 10 seconds ago. It's a long delay. I'm gonna try and back out again and see if I can get back in.
I'll keep reading because I think we're having too big of a delay. But at least if I keep reading, hopefully the audience will.
No sweat, no sweat.
Hopefully the audience will be able to pick up on what I'm saying. So in 1 Corinthians chapter 4 and verse 15, what it's saying here is Paul is just saying, like, a lot of you brothers have lots of teachers. You understand? But I have borne you all. Right? Paul is saying, I have borne you all through the Holy Spirit. Meaning, There's many brothers that can teach. There's a lot of brothers who have come in and out of the school of I.S.U.P.K. You understand? But we got to understand that there's only one man that is the head of this nation. And that man is Commanding General YAHANNA. Right? Let's go to 1 Corinthians chapter 11 and 1. And it says, "Be ye followers of me, even as I also am of Christ." And so the Apostle Paul said, "Follow me." A Christian is going to say, "I follow no man." And they do this because they just don't understand the Bible. Right? You got brothers out here saying, "I'd never follow a man," but yet you read the book of Moses and you follow Moses. You read the book of Samuel, you follow Samuel. You understand? You follow King Solomon. You follow Ezekiel. You follow Christ. You follow the disciples. Right? It's a very ignorant and stupid comment to make that you don't follow any man. And Apostle Paul is telling you here, follow me, because I follow Christ. It's not a hard concept to understand unless you are carnal minded. You understand? The scriptures say a carnal minded man is spiritually dead. You understand? He doesn't understand anything. He has a tough time grasping things that are spiritual. All right, so let's go to Luke chapter 6 and verse 40. Because this is something that Christ said. Luke 6 and verse 40 reads, "The disciple is not above his master, but everyone that is perfect shall be as his master." Meaning Christ said the disciple is not above his master. And so some of us need to learn to be quiet, you understand, and just get in order. We got to make it our job to be exactly like the man that's above us, the person who's our head. And Christ said that's how you obtain perfection, right? Christ told brothers, if you want the kingdom, be perfect, just like your Father who is in heaven is perfect. Understand? And some of us can't tell when Satan is in our ear or not. You know what I mean? One day some of us will be able to tell, but either way, you can lessen your burden and be a good soldier and just take order from the man that's above you. All right? Let's go to 2 Timothy. We're going to go back to 2 Timothy. And we're going to read verse 4. Second Timothy chapter 2 and verse 4. And it says, "No man that warreth entangleth himself with the affairs of this life, that he may please him who hath chosen him to be a soldier." You understand? If I had it my way, you understand, I'd have, right, with all the drama and chaos in the world, all the heartache and headaches in the world, because I have a tough time controlling my flesh. You know what I mean? And this is why we got to be good soldiers. And this is why we have to go to war. right? Like I've learned since being in the I.S.U.P.K, rather than following my own thought process, go to counsel from the men above me and be instructed on how to live life, right? I've learned that instead of marrying a loudmouth dragon, I'll go to war as a good soldier and marry who I'm told to marry. You understand? Like that would save so much heartache and pain for myself, right? And some of us like nice things, right? Some of us, we'd gladly work 80 hours a week if we could, and it would get us all the things that we want and desire in life. But in return, we go and work all those hours and put all that time into work. We're not going to have time to do class. We're not going to have time to come to class or go to camp, wake brothers up and do the work of the Most High, right? And so there's got to be a man above you, somebody that's in charge of you, to be like, look, soldier, like, you got to say fuck that job, right? Be at camp this weekend. Get in class or go teach these brothers and wake these brothers up. You know what I mean? We got to be tunnel visioned and focused on this battle, right? And this is how we please him who calls us. All right, let's go to Romans chapter 6. Go to Romans chapter 6 and verse 16. All right, Romans 6 and verse 16 reads, know ye not that to whom ye yield yourselves servants to obey, his servants ye are, to him ye obey. Right? We all have a choice in life who we obey. We can obey the Most High and live, or we can obey sin and die. Right? Let's go to Ephesians chapter 5 and verse 22. Psalm 137. Ephesians chapter 5. Ephesians chapter 5 and verse 22 says, wives, submit yourselves unto your own husband as unto the Lord. And if you're a sister, right, for every Black, Hispanic, and Native Indian sister, if you lay down with a man, you also have a decision to make, right? You can obey your husband and live, or you can listen to yourself and die. You understand? All of us got to be soldiers in this truth, right? And this is how we lessen the burden and make it easier to follow and obey the Most High, right? And for some of these sisters, you got to understand that if your husband is not in the truth, right, you got to understand that this scripture isn't giving brothers the authority to be tyrants over you. You understand? The Most High will only ever tell you to do what is lawful, right? And to sisters who are not married, I strongly encourage you, marry a brother who's in the I.S.U.P.K, right? Marry a brother who obeys the voice of his father. Understand? And a lot of men and women in our community, we battle between each other because of how we watched our oppressor. Understand? Like, we got to understand that these people that are over us are not a righteous people. And if you're a sister, you should be scared of a man who wants to rule over you the way that these evil bastards rule over us, right? And the Most High wants you to obey a man, right? The Most High wants you to obey a man that obeys the Most High. He doesn't want you living in sin. All right? And let's read verse 23 says, "For the husband is the head of the wife, even as Christ is the head of the church. And he is the savior of the body." And so what this means for husbands is to be over your wife the way Christ is over the church. And to do that, brothers have to lead their women by teaching them. And this isn't just scripture breakdowns, but we got to lead our women in everything, right? And you got to understand that if you're not leading her your rib, then somebody else is going to teach her. And 9 times out of 10, your rib is teaching herself, right? And so a lot of times these sisters are going to come to you thinking that they know best, right? And so let's read an example of what Christ did with the church when brothers thought that they knew best. You understand? Let's go to Matthew 16 and verse 22. Matthew 16 and verse 22 says, I'll start at verse 21, says, "From that time forth began Yahushua to show unto his disciples how that he must go into Jerusalem and offer many things of the elders and chief priests of the scribes, and be killed, and be raised again the third day." Verse 22, "Then Peter took him and began to rebuke him, saying, Be it far from thee, Lord. This shall not be unto thee." Understand? And so this brother here thought he knew what was best. Understand? Peter took Christ and told him, don't worry about all these things that are going to happen to you. You know what I mean? Just come with us and we'll protect you. And Peter was trying to correct Christ here. And the reason he was trying to correct Christ isn't because he wasn't an honorable brother, but Peter just wasn't listening to what Christ was saying. He didn't listen to what Christ had been talking about the things that were to come and the things that he had to do. And Christ saw the spirit behind what Peter was doing, right? He understood what it was Peter was doing. And it's just that Peter wasn't paying attention. All right, so verse 23 says, "But he answered and said unto Peter, Get thee behind me, Satan. Thou art an offense unto me. For thou savest not the things that be of God, but those that be of men." You understand? Christ told Peter, "Get behind me, Satan." Because Christ understood that sometimes Satan will use people to test you, to make you weak, break you down. And it's your job as a man to see Satan. Understand? Even when the people closest to you think that they are doing the right thing. You understand? There was a brother in this truth, very wise brother, who told me the way that I should view my rib is that picture her like a princess in a tower, and there's a dragon flying around that's keeping her in bondage or keeping her oppressed. You understand? And as a man, as her husband, it's my job to slay that dragon and save her. And so we got to understand as men, sometimes in a relationship, your woman is going to come to you with something, and it is your job to check the shit out of her or to check the shit out of Satan. Salakia. Because sometimes Satan is going to use people to tempt you, to test you. You understand? You got to love your woman the way Christ loved the church. The only way we're going to have healthy relationships is if, as a man, you maintain authority over your woman. And the only way to maintain authority over your woman is if you don't allow her to weaken you through love. Right? Satan is going to use your woman's love to weaken you. And you cannot let love weaken you. You as a man cannot let Satan weaken you through your woman. You understand? And sisters, like women have to understand their fight. And their fight is doing what their husband tells them to do. Because that is a position you put that man in when you gave your body to him. Right? And this is what the law class is about. The law class is about bringing us back into the wisdom of the Most High so that we can reclaim our proper position in this earth and so that the other nations can bow down before us. You understand? Let's grab, got a little more time. Let's jump back to Ezekiel. Grab one more verse and then we'll end the class. I think it's Ezekiel 12. Verse lucky. Ezekiel 18 and verse 31. Ezekiel chapter 18 and verse 31. And it reads, "Cast away from you all your transgressions, whereby ye have transgressed, and make you a new heart and a new spirit. For why will ye die, O house of Israel?" Meaning, this is not being conformed to this world, right? Our battle is not carnal, right? But it's spiritual. You understand? We got to shake off the mindset of this place called Babylon. You understand? We got to come out of this place, which is spiritually Sodom, or spiritually Egypt and Sodom. You understand? We got to come out of this mentality, this certain way of thinking, change the way that we operate and move as a people so that we can get our freedom from this oppression that we're in. You understand? And so we got to stop doing the things that you know are against the Most High. You understand? You don't have to continue living the life you've been living. You don't have to continue reaping the consequences of the things that you've been doing. You understand? Like, you don't have to continue to be a hoe. You don't have to continue to be an alcoholic or a drug dealer because that's what your parents did. You understand? You don't have to be a fornicator because someone molested you as a child. You understand? You can choose to live a different life. Right? And you can repent of these things And if you would repent and turn from the things that you were doing, the Lord will forgive you and look at you like none of those things were ever a part of you. You understand? Like, it would make you a new heart and a new spirit by being transformed in your mind. Right? For why will ye die, O house of Israel? Verse 32 says, for I have no pleasure in death of him that dieth, saith the Lord. Wherefore turn yourselves and live. Right? Like I said before, these laws, statutes, and commandments, they're not grievous. Right? It's a very reasonable thing to do to ask us to obey our Father. And like I said, not only is it reasonable for us to obey our Father, but the Most High wants us to live. He wants life for us. He wants good for us. You understand? He doesn't want us dying of cancer. He doesn't want us dying of drug overdose. He doesn't want our sisters prostituting themselves, being raped, sold into sex trafficking. Right? The Most High doesn't want us to die. He doesn't want our lives of sin to destroy us. The Most High would rather that we obey him. Understand that we have that new heart and surround and live. Learn the truth and be free. Right? And with that, I'm going to end Wednesday's night law class. We'll do a security announcements and then we'll salute out. So we are the I.S.U.P.K. This is the I.S.U.P.K. security announcement. 5th Street, Harlem, New York. Rule for new brothers and sisters. When a new brother or sister comes into the school, they are off limits for 6 months. They are to be saluted only. They are here to shed themselves of the world. If they need transportation, the teacher will arrange it. After 6 months, if a brother or sister has an interest in a particular person, he or she must get permission from the head to marry. She must get permission from the head to speak to a brother or sister. There's another 6 months in which the brother and sister will court each other. After this 6-month period, the brother and sister will get permission from the head to marry. Tithes, which is a commandment. Numbers 18 and verse 21 in Malachi chapter 3, verses 8 to 10. Ma'ashra means 10th in the Hebrew. 10% of every penny of any increase the Lord gives, give to the treasury department or teacher. Priest fund. Free will offering for priests is not mandatory. Whatsoever amount you would like to give, please give. Upcoming holy convocations. We got the Feast of First Fruits coming up, which is on Monday, June 21st, 2021. You can start making preparations for that. You can contact Officer of 500 Zabadia, who is in charge of the High Holy Days in Canada, or you can contact your camp leader in Canada. It is Officer of 5,000 Aban. So with that, men of Israel, Imajim, which means stand. We're going to give a courtesy salute to all the brothers. We'll give a courtesy salute to the sisters. Men of Israel, Imajim Shabbat. Imajim, Barak, Yah Bashim Yah Shai Barak Atham, Yad Yom Matah. And give a courtesy salute to all the sisters. Men of Israel, Imajim Shabbat. Imajim, Barak, Yahweh Shamar Alatha Bashim Yah Shai, Yad Yom Matah. Class dismissed.